welcome to episode 56 with Marc Ramsay, Jeff Chan, and NHL's Shayne Corson. As always, thanks to our sponsors at Conway Customs, Team Enviao Sport, and of course, locally owned Halifax e-scooters. Let's do it.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 56. We got them right away for us. You know, we were going to keep them in the background, but we thought we'd bring them out of the green room right away. Episode 56. John Foster, how are you, sir?
I am good, man. It's good to be back. It's been some busy times, but, you know, appreciate you holding down the fort, man.
Good, man.
It's been good. Got to get things done.
That's it. We're each holding down a fort. And, we'll get right into it. Obviously, thanks to everybody working on the front line, our healthcare workers, truckers, everybody out there doing their thing. And before we get too deep into it, I want to give a little bit of a congratulations to my niece who graduated virtually yesterday. I love you very much, Cassie Clark. Congratulations. Big achievement for her. Yeah. Very cool. I didn't graduate, so it was a big thing for our family. But no, I did graduate.
Is that
true? Barely. Marc Ramsay, our first guest of the night. This handsome gentleman down below. He's a brown belt from Abaya Jiu-Jitsu. Obviously, a philosophy professor at Acadia University, and an absolute wealth of knowledge. A good friend of my co-host here, John Foster. Marc Ramsay, welcome.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome to have you on the show, Marc. I mean, you know, we've trained together. I remember day one at Abaya. You were there already.
How many years?
I'm good friends since. Oh, man, I think it's been 13 for me. So I was trying to estimate how long you must have been there by now. So probably 14 or 15 years on the mats.
Probably.
Yeah, which is incredible. You're a philosophy professor at Acadia. I mean, obviously, your love of martial arts is carried into your philosophy as well, your practice in philosophy, I guess. And let's get into it, Marc. Like, what got you into martial arts, and how did you end up at Abaya? Give us some background, man, and then we'll get into the real deep pondering questions and thoughts and problems of the world.
I mean, I was always more of a weights, kind of guy. And then I think in my 30s, for some reason, I tried out traditional jiu-jitsu in my last couple of years in London, Ontario. And I actually just, I don't know quite why. It was something that you'd always been kind of intended on doing and you never did. And then for some reason, I just started. And I actually ended up doing a few classes too over at, if you know, Leo Laux. Out of London, Ontario, out of his kickboxing club.
Adrenaline.
But he had his own place, and I can't remember what it was called, because this is before, when I was in London, this is a long time ago. It was before I think Adrenaline was even around. Tompkins had another club, I think, back then. But, I ended up getting the job at Acadia, and, I did Aikido for a bit, and I really like Aikido. But once I found out about a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu place, that was something I always wanted to try. And, 15 years later, I'm still grinding away, so to speak.
Yeah, literally.
It is a grind, though. It's a hard thing. It's not an easy sport.
No, and if you've ever rolled with Ramsay, he's a grinder, man. We have absolute battles of attrition on the mats. It's the best, man. And that brings me to another question. You are a philosophy professor, and it's just kind of off topic. I know there's been several times that we've had students at the gym training that were students of yours at the university. What kind of a dynamic does that create as a professor when you're choking your student on Tuesday and teaching them on Wednesday?
I've been really lucky about who it is. It's actually always been students that I get along with.
That's good, yeah.
A decent rapport with. I've yet to have that experience where, and maybe I have, maybe I just didn't realize that there was somebody who was briefly a student of mine who came in to try to kill me or something like that. I don't recall anything like that going down. So mostly it's people who, you have a good rapport with, and then they go laugh and tell their friends about their prof trying to choke them, and them trying to choke their prof and stuff like that. But I'm always awkwardly waiting for that time when it's like, oh, you. This.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it hasn't happened yet, so yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good chance if they're out of buy or they're on the mats in the first place, they got their head on them.
That's right.
Yeah. Really, though, it does
Attitude
trigger
gets washed out fairly quickly.
I disagree with that comment.
Oh, really? You don't train it to buy it.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, but I know all you all don't have your head on.
No, that's absolutely true.
See?
That is absolutely true. But for the most part, like Ramsay said, man, the guys with the attitude aren't going to last
Yeah.
very long.
No, yeah.
No, it's a
I'm
good
just playing around, obviously.
Yeah.
for me, what I really find is I mean, the great thing about jiu-jitsu for me is, I'm not the most naturally, talented person when it comes to athletics. So, you do something you love, you have to accept your limitations and try and work on them. And then, quite frankly, it's a good thing when you're a prof to have something where, man, I'd really like to be better at this, and I have to work so hard. And sometimes it's so frustrating that, other people are getting this technique and I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
And really, you take that back to teaching. You remember to be sort of humble and try to be patient with a student who's, not having the easiest time wrapping their head around a piece of language, because it keeps you in that experience. It allows you to remember what it is to be somebody who's trying to learn something and, having a difficult time. So I think it helps you keep that sense of empathy that I think you need.
I agree.
And that kind of patience. And for me, it's been really important that way. So I'm lucky I'm not better at jiu-jitsu.
That's a cool way of putting it, though, because I'm a classic example. I really struggle with that on the mat, like picking up technique. Like I'll never forget. I went to Marcelo's. I went there. Joel and Christine were down there, and I went in and we did I don't know what class it was. I was late, of course, and Marcelo's over there, and I'm like, oh my god. Anyway, they didn't care. I walked in, whatever, bowed, did my thing, and this poor guy, we were drilling, and it was like a Marcelo show, and I was just so in awe, and I couldn't focus. My ADHD was like going nuts, and this guy like picking up the technique, and I couldn't pick it up. He legit got up and walked away.
No,
he found a different partner, and I was just like, but it's true when you talk about it that way, like. A coach who can meet everybody's needs is so important, really.
And emphasize with the difficulty of learning something.
Yeah. Not everybody's just that star athlete who's just going to pick it right up,
All kinds.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Ramsay, so you've done some work, some philosophy papers and some research into combat sports and violent sports. Let's get into it a little bit on the violent sports. And I guess the discussion is violence for the sake of violence and exercising personal freedom, correct?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Yeah. So I mean,
where did you end up with that when you started, following that rabbit hole, man? Where did you get with this?
For a while I wanted to write, a paper about MMA, and I ended up commenting on, a few people's papers. And what emerged was the really long paper that you've seen. I'll try and sum it up real quick. Back around 1970, 71, when the first Ali Fraser fight went down, the fight of the century, right? It was a 15-round, classic, but also brutally violent. And somebody wrote an editorial in the New York Times saying, this kind of thing has to be banned, right? This is barbaric, and it likened it to the gladiatorial contest of old. And then, not surprisingly, some liberal guy writes a letter to the editor and said that's BS, right? I'll tell you the difference between gladiatorial combat and this. These two guys were consenting adults. And then he basically walks into the reply to that from this prominent conservative of the time, Irving Kristol, which is, okay, consent. So what if the two guys consented to a gladiatorial death match? Would we allow that? No, we obviously wouldn't. And, Kristol, he was a conservative, sort of social conservative. And his attitude was is that, if consent was the rule, if voluntary informed consent was the full rule, well, then people would be allowed to do gladiatorial death matches, but they're not. So liberals think that it's or old school classical liberals, whatever, think that it's all about consent. But the truth is, everybody recognizes that there's some stuff that for them is so dangerous or so violent or so icky, they'd vote to have the, whoops, you guys still there?
Yeah.
I flashed out for a sec. They'd vote to have the criminal law ban it. And not everybody can have their own way. So that the reality is the majority's sensibilities about what you're allowed to do, at the end of the day, they rule. Because a liberal can't explain why you allow boxing, but you don't allow a gladiatorial death match.
Yeah.
We've had a long literature on that where liberals have tried to explain, the difference, and most of the efforts have failed. And look, the long and the short of it is there's one effort to explain that, which is, you can't agree to be a slave. That's one limit. And even if you agreed to a gladiatorial death match, that'd be like agreeing to be a slave because you're giving somebody else the power of life and death over you. Unlike boxing, where you waive your right against assault to test your skills. And the long and the short of my paper is, and it's way too long, it's just a gladiatorial death match where somebody's allowed to execute you when you're down, that would be like a slave contract. But any gladiatorial contest where two dudes are going at each other with swords, right, in a fairly risky endeavor where they both consented, we wouldn't allow that, right? But it wouldn't be a slave match. I mean, you could consent to somebody else being able to come at you with a sword in order to test your skills.
Yeah.
And as long as the match would end when somebody begged off or if somebody was clearly incapacitated, man, that could be a test of skill. But we're not going to allow that. And so then you come back to that difficult question. We want to value consent, but there's some place where we're going to draw the line, and what are the determinations, of that line?
Well, one of the arguments that was raised is where boxing or mixed martial arts, the intent is violence, where in football or hockey, the intent isn't violence. The intent is to move a ball down the field or put a puck in the net. Sorry, and in the neck. Yeah, I guess that happens too.
Shayne Corson's on next. We'll ask him about that.
Right? But the argument is that violence isn't the intent there. But couldn't one argue that with martial arts, there's a practical skill being learned where realistically moving a ball down a field over your brain health isn't going to really do anything in the practical world?
Well, here's and people have made that argument, and the argument you mentioned that this is supposed to distinguish football from MMA and boxing. I know a guy who makes those arguments, and the medical associations that come down even harder on boxing and MMA than they do on football, they make that argument. And I'll just say it in sort of straightforward terms. I think that's a stupid argument. And and for the following reason, right? And I'll give you this sort of ridiculous example. I mean, I shoot you with a gun. Why? Because it was my intention to kill you. That's bad. I shoot you through you with a gun. Why? Well, because I wanted to hit somebody else or I wanted to hit a target. Geez, that doesn't make it any better, right? So so I punch you in the face or I hit you with incredible violent force in order to get a ball, not because I want to hurt you, right? But because I want to get a ball. Well, unless there's something really goddamn important about getting that ball, this doesn't make things any better. That's the long and the short of my view on that, right? It's
so realistically, or I guess the reality of it is sports like this, like our traditional sports that we're used to that have violence as an aspect, are purely for entertainment. There's really not a lot of, you can run fast and you can have good footwork. There's not a lot of practical skills that are going to translate into anything. Where in martial arts or in boxing, or any of these combat sports where you're practicing a skill, and really the only way that you can test your ability is to agree to a match of unarmed combat where you're probably going to get hurt and your goal is to inflict damage, but in the end, it's a real skill. I don't know. To me,
that's really true too. It's a skill that transfers outside. But look at this too in terms of both the injuries that you might inflict, and also in terms of the risk of CTE.
Yeah.
you can say, but I think it's a very weak thing to say, that the purpose of football is to get the ball. And so that horrible violence, if it's horrible, that I inflicted on you, I was just trying to get a ball. Well, once again, if the violence is so bad, you should just not get the ball, man. I don't think it makes such a difference. Like, there's this thin difference of, I was just trying to get the ball. That's why I did this horrible thing to you. That doesn't make football, I think, any better than boxing or MMA. And the reality of it is, the audience in football, the game they know, the game they love, they still come to see the hits.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
another thing, if you look at combat sports, if you look at combat sports, though, the goal is to get hit as little as possible. Where if you're on like the offensive line in football, you're just going head to head every play.
Yeah, and I think one other thing to add to it is that, no boxer or MMA fighter need be understood to trying to inflict long-term brain damage, right, on an individual opponent. I mean, if you knock a person out, you are moving them closer to the point where they should probably, stop their career, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a cost of the business, and we're still fighting over the data and exactly what the risks are and everything like that. But it's a cost of boxing and MMA that you are increasing people's risk of long-term, brain damage. But it's also a cost of football. It's a price we're willing to pay. I mean, the risk of boxing and MMA is plausibly worse. But nonetheless, if you have people playing football, if you choose that as an audience, as owners, as players, then you choose an industry or a form of entertainment that has a brain injury cost. And what you're basically doing is, football is worth the cost in terms of brain injury. And that doesn't make football to me any better than boxing. As a fan of boxing or MMA, you have to realize that, or as an owner, part of the price you pay for this sport that you love is long-term brain injury, right? To some persons. I think we're going to have to accept that.
And I think anybody that's been involved,
the cost, right? That there is a similar cost in football. And the fact that people hit each other in order to get the ball, as opposed to hit each other, in order to win, in that slightly different, that doesn't, to my mind, make a significant moral difference, between those.
You're both hitting each other to win, essentially.
And
I guess too, like
that.
I guess in Thailand with Muay Thai, they fight all the time, every weekend, but they have a modified rule set so they don't inflict so much damage. The guys that me and Derek are working with are going to be fighting 3 or 4 times a year, probably tops, right? Maybe if they have an incredibly active year, they fight 5 or 6 times. If you're playing hockey
right now, probably none.
Yeah, right. Very safe sport right now. Yeah. But I mean, in hockey, aren't they doing 80 games? And in football, aren't they doing like 25 games or 20 games or something like that? I've been involved in combat sports for, I think about 13 years now, and I've had fights, and the only the only serious concussions I ever had were from playing hockey in high school. So it's got, you know what I mean? Like I've done thousands of rounds of boxing.
It's weird, because I'm kind of with you on that, John. Like, I played hockey, and I always had that argument. I'm like, what? Like, to me, hockey's the most dangerous sport out there, right? I'm not shooting it down by any means, but
it's an amazing
it's
game.
an interesting awesome argument here, conversation, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, you're on skates, you're moving 50 miles an hour, and someone cross-checks you in the back of the head. Like, in a fight, you're standing there in your underwear, essentially, fighting a guy. Like, you're not covered in a suit of armor, you don't have a stick. It makes a lot of unbrave people, a lot of cowards brave, I should say, when they're dressed in a suit of armor and they're suckering people. That stuff really pisses me off. The non-honor aspect. Like, as a martial artist, I don't know. To me, that's one of the most aggravating things I've ever.
I think they're
back to the most one of the most ridiculous sort of things that we've continued to permit. For some reason, in our culture. But having said that, in terms of the risk, right? And hey, I'm a philosopher, not an epidemiologist. Yeah. I think what we have to, as fans, be prepared for is this, right? I mean, the single biggest epidemiological study of boxers man, that was a study of retired boxers from the 1930s to the 1950s, I think, in the UK. And I don't think there's been a study of similar size and scope, since. And that found it's like 17% of the retired boxers have what we would now call CTE, and a substantial number of the other ones had other more mild sort of problems.
Yeah.
I think we need to face the empirical possibility, and it might even be a likelihood that in terms of CTE, boxing's maybe worse than, or there's a good chance it is worse than American rules football, and that MMA is somewhere in the range of boxing, maybe not quite as bad, maybe a little worse.
Yeah. Well, the argument is with MMA, if you go to the ground or if you're TKO'd, it doesn't get stood back up. You can get choked out. You could have a fight where you never got hit. I had 2 fights where I didn't get hit. I just choked the guy out in like 30 seconds, and that was it. It was done.
And if MMA turns out to be less risky, that's going to be part of the explanation. I mean, one of the things that people point to is this, right? I mean, and again, philosopher, not an epidemiologist, but I'm having we get a contract for a book, by the way, on this stuff. So I'm having to go back over this stuff.
Wow, congrats, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's be a collection by a variety of authors, edited by my colleague Jason Holt and I. And, some of the early studies, what they really indicated that MMA maybe was safer than boxing, because you didn't seem to see the same number.
We've been saying that forever, but is it true, really? Yeah.
You know what? For a decisive comparison, I doubt we'll ever have the kind of data we would need.
Yeah. Well, in football, didn't they? Was it last year they put out a statistic that every single football player, even at high school level, has some form or amount of CTE?
Yeah, I think the Cantu types are making. Now, I might be wrong about the study that we're looking at here. I think they're making an extrapolation from some limited data, and they have their reasons, for that. Yeah. I think with respect to boxing and MMA, some of the recent stuff that the cohort comparisons that measures shrinkage in brain size, regions of the brain, you're seeing some recent stuff that shows like the MMA fighters are doing a little better than the boxers that way. Okay. But you're seeing an increase in the number of concussions or traumatic brain events in MMA. It's tough because when you say there's more traumatic brain injuries in MMA fights than boxing, the people studying the boxing use one definition of a traumatic injury. Yeah. Studying the same.
Okay.
The cross comparison is frankly really, really tough. But just as, we want to say that MMA is safer because, it goes to the ground and guys don't get stood up, and that's true. And if MMA turns out, if we ever get the data to make a reliable claim, that would probably be part of why. But one of the things that people point to is the number of blows that a person absorbs in the last 30 seconds before an MMA fight is called can be pretty freaking serious.
Yeah, that's true. We definitely have seen some people. Even Nagano's knockout the other day, man, he took a couple hits when he looked already dead. Like that. That's always the scariest thing for me, when someone's out cold and they take like a couple wicked shots.
And that can never change. That's the problem, because it's such a fast sport. Like it's you either have that instinct or you don't.
Yeah, and it's kill or be killed, so you gotta go after it. Yeah.
And the prevailing theory remains that subconcussive accumulation contributes too, and of course you're still bound by the problem that you don't have a method of pre-postmortem diagnosis of this stuff. Right. And many of the symptoms won't show up. Sometimes they don't seem to show up until fairly late, in life after you've retired. So, a kind of reliable assessment of the comparative level of risks, unless you have these really huge epidemiological studies with shared sort of standards, that might be tough. But we don't want to stake a defense of MMA, I think, on the idea that, it just is safer than these other sports. There's good reason to think that, it isn't.
Yeah, sure.
Even if it isn't, what's the magical number of risk? And we don't actually have
everyone's different too, right? So, yeah.
Our understanding of what the risks would be. It's tough. In terms of the risk of fatality, in-game injury, neither boxing or MMA look necessarily that bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's the long-term risk of CTE that seems to make them stand out. But we now know that other contact sports carry those risks.
Yeah.
Though we're probably being naive if we say that, those sports are just as risky, right, as combat sports.
Well, you look at let's look at a NASCAR driver.
Yeah, or a free climber, or
driving down the road, I guess too, right? Like it's one of those things, I guess it's driving down the road is not,
to make people feel comfortable with those sports, though, gets back to what you guys were talking about before, this idea that you don't intend to inflict injury on people.
Yeah.
And again, that comes back to this alleged distinction between, football and boxing and MMA. But I just don't think that that's a particularly reliable distinction. It gets back to, in philosophy, what we call the doctrine of double effect, which is you can obliquely intend something bad, right, as long as you have a good object. So you bomb a military target, and there'll be some civilian splashback, but that's okay because you didn't really want, to bomb the civilians or something like that. And you were doing something really, really important. So you can accept certain foreseeable losses or damage in the pursuit of an important goal or something like that. But then again, it comes back to this idea that it would excuse football if there was something incredibly important about getting that ball, right? So it's so incredibly important to society that you get that ball that it's okay for you to inflict the pain, the injury, the cumulative CTE risk of that project, because the ball is so important. But realistically, no, people like seeing you chase that ball, and they like seeing you get the guy to get it. So unless the ball is really important, because this is often, I didn't mean to hurt you. I knew you were going to get hurt, but there was something important I had to do. But that kind of argument relies on this other thing you're trying to do as being really important. I'm sorry I had to inflict these losses on you, but this other thing I was trying to do is so important that it's morally okay for me to inflict losses on you that would otherwise be inappropriate. Okay, were you saving your society? Were you saving a kid? That's why you knocked me over? No, I need to get a ball.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, people like watching you get that ball, and they like watching you hit some dude on your way to it. No, your sport's really, and this is just me, my philosopher's opinion, that is not a basis for making football, like I said, any better than boxing.
Yeah, really, right? And
now there's just honesty to it too, as I said before, right?
Yeah.
You want to see dudes hit other dudes in order to get the ball. Let's not pretend what the audience doesn't want. So it's true that the audience in an MMA fight, and I feel bad about this in boxing too, I want to see the knockouts because I want to see something spectacular. But it's not the case that I want the guy to walk away hurt. Now, this is unrealistic. I want to see that knockout because I love it because it's something spectacular. I don't want the guy to get CTE, and yet I shouldn't be naive here. That thing that I love to see that is spectacular, that's not making that dude's brain any better. And even a primitive reciprocity of two dudes wailing on each other where neither obviously gets a concussion or goes down, that wasn't good for either of their brains probably, either. So I don't want to undersell what might sort of be the moral problem, but the other sports aren't better. I repeat myself here, right? But the other sports, to my mind, aren't better just because you're trying to get the ball.
Yeah. Is there any argument to the not individual sports, but like sports where like wingsuit flying or like free climbing or like free diving or any of these sports someone does all on their own that have a high risk of death? If I am not harming anybody else, do I have the right to wingsuit into a cliff?
Well, and this is the thing, we're not always consistent, even our approach to those things, even in terms of sports, right?
Because I can voluntarily risk my life jumping off a cliff and flying through the trees at 120 miles an hour, but I can't voluntarily say, you try to kill me and I'm going to try to stop you. Or I guess I can, but you know what I mean? Like that's kind of like there's no consistency, like you said, to the argument. And Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like,
And
did you touch on that?
It is creepy that somebody's primary object would be, I mean, look, you're risking getting killed because you want to climb that mountain or something like that. Whereas there does seem to have been, this is why the gladiator example is so right. No, my main object is just to finish you off. Okay,
and is this more back to like the right to honor?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. That does sound like that's going a little. That one's going rather too far. But having said that, how are these things fungible, right? And this is like a comparative of risk. I mean, the risk of free climbing is not going to be CTE because if it goes wrong, you're going to be dead, right?
Yeah.
And then how do you weigh those things against each other? And it is true. Here's one of the things that we don't seem to like. I mean. And we need to think about this. We do to some degree allow people to take fairly serious risks of just dying, doing something. Now those risks are low. We're less comfortable with the CTE risks, which don't necessarily get anybody killed. Now, mind you, it's tough. The CTE risks are higher, right, realistically, than the risk of dying free climbing, if at all you know, I think, what you're doing.
If you're at that level, yeah.
It's messy, and part of the reason is historically over time we've just sort of, for some kind of reason, allowed people to take this kind of risk and this kind of work, and then this kind of risk and this kind of work, and it's a crazy inconsistent sort of patchweb. We don't have and maybe we should, a consistent approach to the kinds or level of risk that people are allowed to take in life. I mean, you would never allow, and this is like Nick Dixon, the guy I engage with, who wants to, ban boxing, as a philosopher. And fair point, you need to write. You would never allow, if the point is you're getting paid, you would never allow a factory worker, right, even if they were paid really well, to face the kind of risks that an MMA fighter faced in terms of long-term brain health. Boxing. Now, what do you do with that? I don't think that's the end of the argument, but we need to look at these things. If you viewed it from a lens of workplace safety, oh my God, boxing and MMA don't make any sense, and neither does football.
And realistically, for combat sports, if you're a fighter, most of the damage you're accepting is going to be in the gym. And we've seen a big change in the last, 5 to 8 years with the information on CTE, and guys aren't sparring as much or as hard. Some guys aren't sparring at all between camps now. So there's been a lot of knowledge in that. I mean, I know even when I started boxing, especially the generation right before me, was go to war in the gym every day. And, when we started out, we fought each other a lot, you know what I mean? And now we don't do it nearly as much. I'll do boxing sparring where I'm getting hit maybe once a week. If I
got to cut you off here, guys.
Sorry.
I'm sorry to cut you off here, Mark, and I got to thank you very much for joining us. Sorry, man, we're got to move on to our second guest. Otherwise, we'll be here for 7 hours, and unfortunately,
we could be.
I could do
a lot. So I'm sorry about that. But
no, that's good, man. It's great information, and hopefully we can get you on for another show, a full episode. And we'll go into this a little bit deeper. But I do want to thank you, obviously, from Fight League Atlantic for joining us, and with all your wealth of knowledge. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, Marc Ramsay, folks.
Cheers, Mark.
Awesome. Sorry about that, Johnny. Sorry to cut you off.
Dude, you know what? I'm sorry. I was watching the time. That's one of those things. I had about 5 more questions on top of my head.
That's okay, man.
It's interesting stuff.
That's right. Exactly. I just don't want, how about it? Gotta get to this next guy. Next guy is a fantastic athlete. Fights for 1FC. I'm not sure if you've seen his last fight or not. He fought in 1FC, 4-1. He's a Canadian guy out of Ottawa, Ontario. Jeff Chan's his name. He's so dynamic when he fights, but not only that, he's got everything going for him.
I've actually been following this guy for a while on Instagram, man. And
a lot of fighters can look up to this guy and see how to play the game, man.
Just awesome drills and techniques he's throwing up all the time. He's the real deal, man.
Smart man. Let's bring him in. One and only Jeff Chan. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you guys?
Hey,
awesome.
Jeff.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. No, so anybody who's just joining us, obviously Jeff Chan out of Ottawa, 1FC. How's that experience, man?
It's been a great experience. They treat their fighters really well. The first event was very organized. Everything ran smoothly. First time traveling across the world to compete, though, so it was a bit different. But everything turned out good.
Nice. That has to be a perk of that, really, getting to fight in Japan and different places.
Yeah, in Singapore, I mean, I had to go 2 weeks earlier to like get rid of the jet lag.
Mhm.
Like the jet
Oh,
lag is
wow.
really tough,
Yeah.
especially when you're dieting, cutting weight.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting because that's the thing. You fought for BTC, which is obviously a great promotion in Ontario, and then your very next fight, you went to ONE FC. Like, that's the jump that you're looking for.
Yeah, it was a big jump. Surprised me.
I bet. But you handled it with flying colors.
Yeah, it's funny because right after my BTC fight, BTC wanted me to fight again, which I declined just because I told my audience that I wasn't going to compete again. I made a promise to my fiance that I wouldn't fight again. Then, like a month later, I get a call from ONE FC, and then I was like, "Oh, it's a deal I couldn't turn down."
Yeah. And will that continue?
Yes, I'm going to be taking one fight at a time, but my mindset kind of just changed. But
yeah, because you've had an extensive kickboxing and Muay Thai career previous to this, right?
yeah,
Was this kind of at the point where in competition you were like, my body's taking enough damage, I'm gonna scale back? Like I've been following you on Instagram for a while, man, and the technique videos and the drills and stuff you put out are just awesome. It looks like you're training for a fight in the gym all the time, regardless.
Actually, that's not the reason. It's not. I mean, I'm sure my brain and body has taken a lot of damage, but that wasn't my main reason for making that decision. My main reason is because I think of myself more as a martial artist over a fighter. I love the grind. I love training hard, as you see in my videos. I like to spar hard too. I like to get beat up, but I don't like competing as I do like sparring and training in general. Like they say, when you're sparring, you're at your 100%, 110%. I feel like a superhero when I spar, but then when you get into a fight, you only use like 10% of that. So, fighting and training is just so different. And I kind of see myself as that guy who trains martial arts, wants to get better, but not necessarily fighting. And my goal is to be one of the best coaches out there. So I'm very inspired by, for example, Coach Faraz Zahabi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw you sparring him. I watched that like just a week ago or something. I was like, holy smokes, they're actually going like somewhat hard. I was, because you're both so respectful. I was like, oh, but you won. Yeah. That's good.
I mean, it was a intense sparring session, but very controlled as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's what I like about Faraz is not only does he just coach, but he can handle all his fighters. Like he competes with his fighters. And
that's crazy.
That's a coach that I want to inspire to be someone who can teach, but also keep up with his students.
Yeah, nice. My boxing coach was like that. He sparred with us all the way up until he just couldn't anymore. And then I try to do the same thing with my students. Like I'm not competing at all anymore, but I spar with all my students, and I try to do that. And the guys that are competing, I'm there in their camp as much as I can be.
Exactly.
And doing that, and much like yourself, I really enjoy the training. I would spar every day, all day, jiu-jitsu or stand up. If my body and all that would hold up, that would be my most favorite thing to do. But the fighting, the anxiety in that was absolutely killer for me. And the risk of some serious damage that's going to affect my ability to play with my kids maybe, or things like that. Right.
I feel the same way because you can spar hard, but if you get hit hard and you're able to stop then and there, but in a fight it's different. And
yeah, your teammates shouldn't be trying to actually kill you or knock you out.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I watched that one video, Jeff. I don't know how long ago that was. Of you, it was like a video of the guy was much larger than you, much larger. It was a pretty intense sparring session.
I've had quite a few.
He looked like
you narrow it down.
This guy, he was big. He almost looked like he had a mullet. He looked like a hockey player, but it was. I don't know where it even was. I should try to pull it up here, but it got pretty intense.
The last sparring session I had that was against a really big guy. I called it sparring a Taekwondo athlete. He was at least like 6'4". Jacked. He was like he was the Muay Thai instructor of the gym that I was training at. And
did it get a little personal kind of thing? Like
you know what? He's a super nice guy, and people who watch that video may comment and think like I got very emotional. I got emotional during the sparring round, and I guess here's the full story. So I was hosting a camp at a gym in Bali, in Indonesia, and it's a train and travel camp. So basically,
Evolve?
Sorry,
Did you not evolve?
no. So I hosted a camp in Bali, Indonesia. So basically, I host a camp for 2 weeks, and 14 students from my following come to meet me and train with me. So we train twice a day. After we train twice a day, we go eat, we hang out, we just have fun. It's just a great time.
That's awesome.
And after every technique session on the evening session, we'll do sparring. And I guess the gym that I hosted a camp at, it's more of a recreational practitioners. So they don't have much sparring. And I guess, clearly he told me that there weren't much sparring. So he's like, hey, can I join your class? And, one day he joined, and me being the instructor and him being not only an instructor as well, but also a really, really big guy, jacked athlete, asked me to join my class. And I was like, hey, sure, why not? Of course, I'm the first person to spar him. And it's like, we just finished 2 sessions, like one in the morning, one in the evening. He comes at the end, fresh. Okay. We touch gloves. First strike, he kicks me really hard in the leg.
Yeah, this is the one.
First strike, he kicks me in the leg. I mean, it's not that I couldn't take the leg kick, but it's more of the principle. He kicked me hard in the leg. And usually, as a student joining in a class, you would let the instructor dictate the pace.
Yeah.
That's number one. And number two, he was probably double my size. And so he kicked me really hard in the leg. And then after that, he threw a hard kick to the body. I felt in the ribs. I caught it, and then bam, he Superman punches me in the face. And like from there, I was angry. And then we kind of went to war in the sparring session.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. You handled it like a boss.
Yeah. I mean, after the fact, he was a really nice guy. Whenever we walked by each other at the gym, he would say hi. He was a very respectful guy, but maybe he let the ego get to him. Since there was a crowd watching, camera as well.
That cameras will definitely up the sparring, and people will up the sparring. And some guys, man, like I have buddies at the gym I've been training with for a decade that just don't have any other speed but like 110. And they'll walk in and go, I don't want to say his name, he's one of my best friends, but he'll be like, let's just take it easy, go light, and then it'll be right away, it'll be 100%, let's go. Every time.
I mean, at least if he's your friend, you've trained with him for a while, that's okay.
Oh yeah.
And 100%. Usually you kind of work your way up, but this is my first time meeting him. First shot, full. I don't know how hard it was, but I felt it.
Yeah, man, that's completely uncalled for. Like you said, like even if someone comes into my gym, I'm generally the first one to spar them. I'm a smaller guy as well, just because I'm not going to put my student in that position that's maybe less experienced. At least I got the experience to protect myself, I hope. And man, I usually try to let them dictate the pace and take it easy. And some guys, man, they just go for the kill.
They do.
Let them know what's up if you can.
Yeah, and you kind of wanna put them in place, right? Like I always follow the rule of thumb. I hit as hard as I get hit. Like if someone's small, if someone's small, hits me hard, I'm gonna hit him hard back. If he's big, stronger, better, hits me hard, I'm gonna hit him back hard, even if I lose.
Yeah, it was fun. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that, John, but you should watch it.
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
I gotta ask you, man. Like, going back to what I said earlier in the intro, like fighting. It's an amazing art in itself, but the business behind it is a whole different art form. Like we're a business. We're trying ourselves to see where you've got to the level you've got, the following you have, the work you're doing. It's an incredible thing, and the grind is real, my friend. It's not easy. If anybody thinks this stuff happens overnight, like it's a lot of work. How did you get into that? What motivated you? Why did you start into that stuff?
Okay, where do I start? So I was actually in law enforcement before all this started.
Oh, okay.
I was in accounting. I was in business at first, and I dropped out of business, and then I went to law enforcement because I didn't know what else to do. And while I was in the process of trying to become a police officer, I had a friend. Do you guys know who Sean Fagan is, the Muay Thai guy?
Yep.
Okay, so he is a YouTuber and fighter, lives in Thailand now full time. He hosted his first, traveling train camp, and I attended. It was like a month training camp, and I met him for the first time. So I followed him before attending this camp, And when I got there, we hung out, and I was just really inspired by what he did. So he does exactly what I do, but in Muay Thai only. And he's like, hey, you train MMA, you're a professional. Why don't you do the same thing? And I never thought I would be the one. I never thought I'd be someone who would make a YouTube channel. And then and there, I used his camera to film my first few videos. He's actually in my first few videos, and it just went on from there. So he's been like a mentor to me since.
Very cool. So how long ago was it then that you started your YouTube channel, and then what was the transition into Instagram?
2016 was. I went in February 2016. And then,
oh wow! So quickly, it's all come together. Yeah.
I mean,
well, I say quickly. I mean, it's 4 years or 3
years.
Yeah.
It started to skyrocket in like 2018. I would say it was very, very, very slow to begin with, but I think consistency is what paid off for me. But how I got
was there a catalyst video that like jumped it?
So what I was taught was, at the beginning, you want to find some like viral type video to get yourself out there. So my first ever video was actually me challenging people on the streets to punch me in the face with the gloves on. This was inspired by Fight Smart Trav.
I remember that. Yeah.
Okay.
Dude, I think I remember this as well. I didn't realize it was you.
Yeah,
you just use head movement and then they try to hit you, right?
No, that
was other guy.
Fight Smart Trav. He did a much better job than me. I have to admit. Mine was
got hit, did you?
not that I didn't get.
I'm kidding.
Get hit, but mine was the long guard. So I had gloves, and it was really hard to find people to actually want to punch you in the face without thinking you were
gonna
weird.
Retaliate.
Yeah. So that was my first video. It got a lot of hate, but it also got a lot. It went deep. It went viral. I'd say not like 1 million subscribers following, but it hit a high number for having no subscribers at all. And from then, I just was consistent with videos. The growth was small, but I never really looked at the number. I saw my platform as a blog/vlog/journal.
Yeah.
So if I would learn new techniques, or if I'm filming my sparring, I would upload it kind of as a memory. And I guess the sparring got popular, and I think that's what helped me grow the most.
Interesting. Yeah. So you just took it one video at a time, didn't really worry about all that, and all this time, like you're building content, like you said, creating this journal you can kind of look back on and see what you were doing.
Exactly.
And then a couple years later, how much content do you think you had up in 2018 when things really started to climb?
I honestly can't remember how much I had, but it took me a good year to 2 years before I started to see momentum going.
Yeah. Do you focus on any particular like area? Like, is Canada like a big market for you?
Actually, my audience is in the States. I mean, I have people following me from all over the place, but if you look at my stats, they're mainly from the States.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The population size, I guess.
Yeah. I think a lot are from LA, and that's actually a place I would like to visit once this lockdown lifts. Where are you guys located again?
Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia. Gotcha.
Yeah, just a couple hours east of you.
Nice.
But LA, it's a beautiful place, that's for sure. How's the whole? Obviously, Ontario's lifting up a little bit now, which is good. Things seem to be slowing down. Have you got any training in, or?
So for me personally, I've been keeping really busy. I'm working on a new course. So Every morning I've been filming for about an hour, and then after I film, I'm editing, and I edit for an hour or two. Then it's lunchtime already. Eat, do a little bit more editing, and then I've actually been training my mom, because I'm during the lockdown. I've been training. I'm living with my mom during the lockdown, and she's bored and she's wants to lose weight. So I've been training her. After I train her, my fiance holds pads for me, and then by the time I finish showering, I eat dinner, watch TV, and I repeat. So I've been busy. I've been making the most out of it. How about you guys?
Man, I've been doing all kinds of stuff. I haven't been training much. I've been doing some lifting. I have a martial arts school, but I also have a fitness facility, fitness gym.
Very cool.
So I've been there a little bit, but man, I've been like fixing up a whole house that I've been renting for years to get on the market. That's been 12 hours a day, building chicken coops and hanging out with the kids and learning
Pigs.
SketchUp and doing all kinds of crazy shit.
You guys are lucky,
I've
gym
been
owners.
flat out, man. Like, well, you know, I was like, this is what retirement's gonna be like. I'm gonna be just as busy doing different shit, you know.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that though. It's important.
I love it, man. And
Your
you know
brain.
what? I think right now with everything shut down and the situation I'm in with my businesses and with Fight League Atlantic, you know, everything's shut down. Like Fight League Atlantic shut down, the fitness gym shut down, the martial arts gym shut down. So if I wasn't staying busy, I'd probably just be sitting around thinking about how shitty the situation is. And yeah, I think it's imperative to stay productive and stay busy. And
I heard
yeah.
gym owners are trying to get a petition signed to open up the gyms in Ontario.
I saw that.
It's quite
I signed it,
possible.
actually.
Well, one of the issues we're having here, I actually shot an email over to Dr. Strang's assistant today, because one of the issues we have here is we don't have an association. There's no gym owner association. So, you know, the massage therapist and the acupuncturist and all these other people that have associations are getting meetings and they're getting guidelines, and they're able to, they're going to, I think, soon be able to, or already are able to, like, submit reopening proposals, and we don't have that. So the email I shot off today was like, hey, listen, I'm a gym owner in the Annapolis Valley. What can we do? Can I submit my own proposal? Right. And then, you know, I'm starting to see gyms opening up here and there, but there's no information. Nobody's told us we can reopen.
Yeah. Isn't that not true? Like, you're on your own, like it's up to your own regulations, I think.
Well, no, if we reopen and we've been told to shut down, we're fined. Yeah, it's $7,500 fine to operate a business that's been shut down by COVID. If you're not an essential service, so if I was selling alcohol or wine kits or hardware shit or whatever, I could be making bank. But because we're in the health and fitness industry,
how is alcohol essential? Like I was actually just thinking that I was driving by an LCBO and I saw a huge lineup, but it's not essential, is it?
It's essential because people are dependent on alcohol, and that's how they justify it. Now,
they're saying
it's a bit of horseshit because
spousal abuse and all that kind of stuff, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I guess, right? But
we're
alcohol is
dependent
not
on training.
Exactly. How is exercise less important than alcohol?
Well,
as far as an essential thing, right? For mental health, hundreds of people depend on it. You know, like tons of people. Like out of you know, the members I have at Motive, tons of them, like hundreds of them, depend on fitness and exercise for their mental health and for their social life and this and that and the other thing. So I don't know. If we can just reopen at any time, I'm open tomorrow. But that is, I'm positive, not the case, because they're just starting to work on these protocols and these guidelines. Who the hell knows? I've seen some gyms doing crazy things like putting plexiglass up between every treadmill, or, you know, shower curtains. I think they were doing in Cape Breton, you were saying, and stuff like that. But it's stuff that's going to cost a lot of money and look good, but probably not going to really do anything as far as the overall spread of a virus. So I don't know, man. Like, I'm still under the understanding, and I'm, you know, listening to the news and looking every day, that we can't reopen yet. And maybe in June we will be able to, but there's protocols that we all have to know and implement before that happens. And then we have to be approved to reopen. So I think anyone doing it right now is rolling the dice.
True.
Yeah, it is. Well,
but that's my understanding. I don't know.
He's training his mom. And if anybody hasn't seen these videos, you got to check these out.
You know what? I'm very surprised with how it's going. It's inspired a lot of people, which makes me happy. I've had like at least 10 people send me footage of them training with their mom now, and I'm like, yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was really incredible. How old is she? And I know she may not want to. That's not a question.
60, yeah.
60, man. Good for her. Like,
my mom's very. She says yes to everything. If I tell her to train, she says train.
Gene Clark, shout out to my mom. Bringing some pads home. We're going to learn some.
That's right.
It's
Mom
cool.
Doesn't know.
Well, in this time, like, again, you know, positivity, being happy, like laughter, being good with your family. It's so important. Like, and it's, you know, how many bullshit videos are out there every day about all this or that, or technique videos or whatever. That's a different thing, you know, like that family bonding, and it's bonding over the sport that we all love. I think it's such a big thing.
To add to that, actually, had a pretty straightforward relationship with my mother in the sense that, she's my mom. She cooks for me. Asian mother-son relationship. We never really joked and laughed a lot. We didn't have much in common, right? She doesn't speak much English. I don't speak much Chinese. That kind of relationship. But ever since training her, me and her laughed a lot and joked a lot for the first time.
Interesting.
So it was actually
Common
very,
ground.
very nice. Yeah, it was very nice.
Wow, very cool. That's a heartwarming thing, man. It's amazing, like, because hey, John, like how important, like we all three of us sitting here. Obviously, Jeff, it's your profession, like that you're a professional athlete, but and John, it's your profession too. But it's at the end of the day, you're doing it because it's something you love, right? Like that you wouldn't train that hard in those sparring videos.
Oh yeah,
if you just didn't love it, right?
You have to love it.
Yeah. I find that due to COVID-19, and I hate for this virus to take the credit, but because of it, I'm back at home and I'm spending time with my mother. Where I probably, if COVID-19 wasn't happening, I'd still be in Vietnam right now or Thailand.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, it's there's a lot of good things that come from it for sure.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely glass half full kind of situation. Like here we are, and we can't go to our gyms and spar with our training partners and our friends. But hey, man, that's awesome that you've managed to reconnect with your mother and get her training.
Yeah.
And my best sparring partner is my 4-year-old. So
hey, that's awesome.
I gotta be super careful with that guy. It's when your partner's 35 pounds, you gotta be careful you don't fall on him funny or anything.
Do they like martial arts?
Yeah, both my boys. I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they're both in jiu-jitsu.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, my 4-year-old's been in there now for 6 or 8 months. You wouldn't know if he was like 6 or 7 when he gets on the mats. He instantly shapens up as best he can. Yeah. And my 8-year-old has been at it. He's a yellow belt now. He's been training since he was about 3.5 as well. So
that's
the younger one has definitely got the attitude and the desire. The older one does it because he's told to, I guess. He likes the social aspect, but he just doesn't have that fighting mentality or attitude, right? Where the younger one is like gung ho, let's rip, right? Yeah, they're very different. It's incredible how different personalities they can have.
Yeah, they really are. I got to ask you, Jeff. Before we wrap up here with you, we got a couple questions left. Advice for athletes. I know John knows this as well. Like when you're dealing with fighters, I'm always amazed with fighters who, like, for me as a promoter, like it's so simple to share a post or make a post, a daily post, or promote yourself, but it's not done. Like what can athletes learn from a guy like you who really, you got it full circle, man. You're really doing the extra right work, the extra work, right? That paid off.
I mean, I would say I'm very different from other fighters because a lot of other fighters, they only care about fighting. They only care about winning. And as I mentioned earlier, I see myself more as a martial artist, not a fighter. I don't think I'm the best in the world. I don't think I'm even capable of being the best in the world. I just think I can continue being the best version of myself. So with that said, and with the whole vlogging and making a journal of my training, I'm able to put my content out there. I also don't give a fuck what people think about me. So with that said, I put my vlog, my sparring out there. I don't care if my opponents read or trying to analyze me, because you can analyze my fighting style anyways if you watch my previous fights.
Yes.
So with that said, for me, I don't care. I enjoy doing it, and that's the main reason. I've also seen someone do that and make a career out of it, Sean Fagan, and now I'm doing it myself. So it's been since last August where I, completely quit my work, and I'm now doing MMA Shredded full time.
Wow.
That's
amazing, man.
Well, like, I don't know how many followers. Sorry, John. How many followers do you got on YouTube? Like now, like
me? Or I haven't even checked.
Like you're up to like 250,000 or something. Like a lot.
I think I'm at 200.
200,000.
Yeah. Very modest.
yeah, that's right.
No,
Sorry
it's not 4
million.
John. It's 200,000. No, it's all good.
Yeah,
that must have been. Now, was this discussed? We want to see. Obviously, you're a talented fighter. but was your fan base must be for a promotion a bonus, right? Like when they see a guy hitting hundreds of thousands of people on the internet, there's a fan base. We can just pull right into ONE FC.
Probably why they
guys are going to watch him. Yeah, really though, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
it's So that work paid off. Like, it's not just winning fights; it's winning fights, but also having that fan base. I mean, I guess it's the same reason. I mean, Demetrius Johnson's in ONE FC because he wasn't marketable in the UFC. I guess, right?
Yeah.
You know, like if you're marketable, that's at least half the battle. It's got to be because there's a ton of talented guys. Look at Jesse Arnett, wins a pile of fights in a row, still on the regional circuit. I mean, there's different circumstances that played into that. But, you know, I think there's just tons of guys out there that aren't marketable or aren't charismatic that would have gone to the next level maybe if they were. Yeah. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
very true.
I'd like to think that ONE Championship wants me to fight for them because I'm someone who inspires others.
Yeah.
They don't like trash talkers. And I don't like I can't trash talk if I want to. Like, I'm not good at it. But what I can do is inspire others, and I feel like I'm suitable for ONE Championship because of that. You know, partially because of my skill, but obviously for my following and because I can inspire others.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's. I think inspiring people, you know, that's the thing about fighting, you know, or sports or whatever it is. If you have a platform, it's so important to use it for a good purpose. You know, and that's what I love about life and this whole COVID thing right now. It's got you the ability to chat with people like yourself or Shayne Corson coming up next, or whoever it is that people look up to. Like we look up to you guys, and to have the ability to chat with you and get your message out to our fans. It's important, man. So we want to thank you so much for joining us, Jeff. And is there any quick advice you'd like to give before we say goodbye?
I mean, if you guys are, you know, anyone out there who wants to put themselves out there, just put content out there, because a lot of people who have thought of it and don't do it or don't start their own YouTube channel is because they're worried about the hate. They're worried about people making, you know, my coach actually wants to start his channel as well now. And he's like, oh, but, you know, I'm sure people are going to leave negative comments. There's always going to be negative comments. There's always, no matter how good you are, no matter how skilled, how nice, how good of a person you are, you'll always get hate. And one more thing, I know I'm taking over time.
No,
it's good.
My mother's video, you know, it's been one of the most, positive to hate ratio is the best so far. But there's still that one person who said, your mother is stiff as hell, I'd snap her in half. I read that, and I'm like,
lost it.
I respond to him, and I wrote, I'm going to forgive you for writing that comment, because I know that for someone to, you know, have the time of the day to leave a comment like that about my mother, you must be in a really, really dark place in your life.
Yeah.
Please get some help. That's what I truly believe. I believe he needs help. Yeah. And that's how you should think of every hater, though. Yeah. Every hater. Yeah. Like, that's even right now, I've watched several videos that I hate on YouTube. I think it's just dumb. But I would never leave a comment. I would it's like, who cares?
Move on. Exactly. Yeah. Enjoy your day and respect the person doing it. You know, it's like people, you know, they might hate what we're doing here, but don't watch. Enjoy your day, right?
Exactly.
But all right, man. Well, we got to thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully it's not the last time. We'd like to get you on moving forward, maybe before your next fight or something like that. But anybody out there, how can they get a hold of you on social media, Jeff?
Instagram and Facebook, YouTube. I literally read and respond to every comment there is, unless it's negative.
Yeah. So, MMA Shredded, correct?
Yes, MMA Shredded.
All right.
Thank you guys for having me. It was really fun.
Awesome to meet you, man.
Honored. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Jeff Chan. Awesome. Bye. There you have it. All right, man. John, very cool. Great guest. Let's boogie on to our next and final guest of the night. A guy I grew up watching. I'm very honored to have this guy joining us. A legend when it comes to the NHL. You know, I don't know, played for the Canadiens. He was captain of 2 teams, 3-time All-Star, you know, scrapped a lot. You know, for us coming from the Fight League Atlantic background to have a guy on here, it's pretty cool. We can talk about fighting. We can talk about, you know, being a professional athlete, things like that. And not only that, about mental health. You know, he's a guy that's put his face out there. You know, he's dealt with anxiety, and he came out after his career and spoke about that. And he's really taken a lead on it. And it's, again, like we said with Jeff, it's so important for people like that to come out and lead and show others that it's okay to talk, right?
Positive leaders, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. So without further ado, folks, let's bring him in, the legend, Mr. Shayne Corson. How are you, sir?
Hey, boys,
Wow.
how you doing, man?
Awesome.
Good.
Awesome.
How are you?
Doing great. Just trying to stay positive during this crazy time, but I'm doing well. Thanks a lot for having me.
No, we're absolutely honored to have you. To a person of your stature, it's one of those things. Like we said to Jeff, when a professional athlete has a chance to go out there and put their face out there and talk about, I may have had these problems in my career, and this is how I dealt with it. It can help people. And why did you decide to do that?
Well, just like you said, I'm just trying to help people. I mean, I suffered with it for a long time. I've had anxiety and panic attacks since I was a young kid, but it developed and got a lot worse after my father passed away. So I hid it for a long time. It's the worst thing I ever did. It just got tougher and tougher, and then I got into a dark hole where I never thought I was going to get out of it, and contemplated crazy things. And one of them was to jump off the balcony or jump in front of a car, and that wasn't the answer. The answer was to go get the help I needed to get, and I did that. And I had a lot of support with my family, my wife, my kids, and my close friends, my mom and my two sisters. But I decided to go get the help. But now I want to help other people, and just to let them know that it's okay to talk about it. It's not a weakness; it's an illness, and you just got to stay strong and do the right things and get the right help, and admit you need the help, and you'll get better and you can get through it and stay strong.
That's a similar conversation we've had with a few people regarding mental health. It's the education, I guess, has increased, and people are learning, and it seems to be, there's a shifting of the tide where everyone was hiding it, and like yourself, afraid to talk about it. And I think we're turning the corner. It sounds like we've been turning the corner as a society where we can talk about these things, and we can talk about mental health, and it's not seen as a weakness, and it's seen as something treatable. I mean, I'm not in the hockey world anymore. I stopped playing hockey a long time ago when I got into fighting real hard. But in that world, is this something else? I mean, I know we talked talking to hockey players as well. It seems like even where you are and in the NHL and in the hockey leagues, things are starting to open up. Would you say there's been a massive increase in, I don't know, like treatment, I guess you'd say, or breakthroughs, or is there?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you nailed it. The education on the mental illness and anxiety and panic attacks and depression, I think that's the biggest thing that people are getting more educated, and it's up to us to have, when they have these platforms, is to get out there and talk about it more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, guys that were the fighters, they suffered with it the most. They were embarrassed or shy or whatever they were feeling at the time. They didn't want to talk about it and show weakness, because as a fighter they thought it was weakness. But it's not. And I think it's the education, and it's up to us to do more of that. And I think the leagues are doing more of that. I still think there's room to improve on that and to help the guys through these difficult times, especially things like this. It even amplifies the situation with a lot of people are suffering with illness. You're stuck alone and isolated to yourself, so it's a little bit tougher. But for sure, you nailed it. It's the education, and it's up to us to get that out there, and it's up to people like us that, our battlers and warriors. We have to get out there and say to people that it's okay to talk about it, and it's not a weakness. It's an illness, and it can be treated. You made another great comment that it's definitely can be treated, and you just gotta make the right steps to get the treatment. And the first one is to start talking about it, admit that you need the help.
Yeah, and like you said there, I think like you're saying, like guys like yourself that people have looked up to for a long time. You're a tough guy. You're a professional hockey player. You throw down on the ice. If this guy has anxiety, and he's talking about it, and I have anxiety, well, maybe that'll give them the confidence, right? So we need these leaders, these positive leaders, to step forward and put their own ego on the line, I guess, eh?
100%. I mean, I suffered, and I hid it and kept it to myself. And but I seen it through other guys that I played with in the NHL the guys were taking care of us. The Chris Nylons, the John Cordicks, God rest his soul. A lot of the guys suffered with this, but it is up to us to stand up and say, you know what, we're big and strong, and we think we can handle anything in life. But you need that support, you need that help from many people, and it's okay to get it. And when you start feeling those things, you got to go out and get it and take that step, and that's the first step to getting better. But for sure, I agree with you totally. And it's funny how it seems to be the guys that seem to be the toughest on the outside, whether they're the puppies and the soft guys inside. And I seen that many, many, many times with guys that were the guys that were the guys that took care of us on the ice. The Semengos, the Cordicks, the Chris Nylands, the Bobby Probert, who I played with in junior.
Mm-hmm.
They were tough on the outside, but they were softy. They were teddy bears inside, and it affected them a lot. And they were afraid to talk about it and go get the help.
Yeah.
Part of what affected them was having to act tough on the outside, but really on the inside, just kind of having things they needed to talk about or deal with, eh? Yeah.
Exactly. You need
jam it back down. Yeah.
You got it. And a lot of people do that in life, and it's not the thing to do. You need to talk about it and get it out. And I mean, when I first came out with it, I hid it for years and years and years. But it, like I said, it amplified and got to a point where if I wasn't going to get help, I wasn't going to be around any longer. So that's the most important thing. But as soon as I started talking about it, it's like they took a piano off my back, and I started. Oh man,
awesome!
It's just incredible. But
it's funny. Kelly Rudy, we had him on last week. Or Kelly's a guy who I've kind of idolized growing up too. And, you know, much like yourself, and it's him and I said, he said, you know, it's who would have thought 10 years ago or 20 years ago, there'd be three of us sitting here talking about our feelings, you know, it just kind of goes to show how far it's came along, right?
Maybe after 10 or 12 beers, we'd be opening up a little bit more. That's normally the only time people would talk. We self-medicated. We'd drink or, you know, do whatever we could. And then we'd maybe talk about it or open up a little bit more. But you're exactly right. And it's come a long ways, and it's got ways to go yet, but at least we're starting the process. And with you guys doing things like this, I mean, it's amazing. It's an opportunity for myself and other guys and other people just to get out here and tell our story, and hopefully we can help one person, and that's what it's all about.
Makes it worth it, doesn't it?
That sure does. For me, it's I love playing the game of hockey. I love the fighting part of it. I know that there's a lot of people that are against it nowadays, and I understand totally why, because of the concussions and stuff like that. But I mean, I've seen a lot of guys get concussions that weren't fighters, that were just 100% dirty, bad checks. You can look at it a lot of different ways, but I mean,
look like a guy like Paul Correa.
I'm a believer if it belongs in the sport.
I play with Paulie in the World Championships, and got to know him well, and played on a line with him. So
you know all about
Gretzky it. Gretzky got hit by the same guy, Suter, in the Canada Cup in '91. And those guys weren't fighters, but they end up with concussions and bad things. But I mean, it's something we have to do and get out there and talk about it and do the best we can to help people. And like I was getting at is, I loved all that stuff, and I loved the memories and the relationships I had with the players and the memories we created. But I mean, the best thing that ever happened to me was I had a talk with a guy. I was doing an event, a signing at a place in St. Catharines. It's actually for hometown hockey, and I seen a kid in the lineup, and I could tell he wanted to talk to me, and he was a little bit jittery, and I knew the signs right away. I could see that he was suffering with something, right? So I got somebody to go tell him to wait around. I had a talk with him, and a year later I ran into him at a hometown hockey in Hamilton, and he said, Shayne, just by you talking to me, I went and got the help I needed, and I'm alive today. So I get talk about now. It's something that is way more important than hockey. As you know, you guys know, hockey is great. It's a small part of our lives. Fighting's a small part of our lives, but be able to help people and be healthy is the most important thing in life, man.
It's true, isn't it? I think during this COVID time, we've had a lot of conversations about, businesses being shut down and when, the financial situation we're in, but we're healthy. We have a roof over our heads. We have people that love us. Do we have people we can talk to if we need to? Like, things could be worse. You know what I mean? Like,
100%. It's a support. Yeah, it's a support, man. And things could be worse. I mean, I do a lot of work with Hockey Helps Homeless. And can you imagine, like you said, we have a roof over our heads, we have food, and we're healthy. And there's people out there that are suffering a lot worse than us. So, I lost my dad at the age of 45. So my dad was 45. I was 25 or 26 at the time. And I mean, there's a lot of people are going through a lot worse things than we are. And I mean, we have to stay strong for them too. But you're right. There's a lot of people suffering out there right now. And nobody's enjoying this, but we have to do our part to keep, all the people that are fighting for us in the front line safe. But you're exactly right. We're lucky to have a roof over our head, and we're healthy, and that's the most important things in life. And it's things like this that teach you that. I think it's situations like that teach all of us that there's a lot more important things in life. Spending some time with your family. I've talked more to my kids in the the last couple of months that I have in probably 5 6 years.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think they're getting tired of Dad now.
Yeah.
Well, it's good though.
That's where we're at.
I'm sure it's like Jeff Chan, who was just on here. He's a martial artist and he fights over in Asia for ONE FC. And for this COVID, he's actually trained his mother in like Muay Thai, and they've been having a ball and laughing more than they have been forever, right? So it's interesting you say that. It's a wonderful thing, and it's brought out a lot of great things as well. I got to ask you one hockey question, if you don't mind.
Not at all, man. Ask away. You can ask anything.
Who's the guy? Who's the toughest one? Who's the toughest fight you ever had?
Oh man, that's hard to say. Like, I mean, I've had a lot of them, and there's a lot of tough guys out there, especially when I came through the league. I can give you. So the hardest I ever was punched was by Kurt Fraser. He played in Chicago, and he broke my jaw. Actually, I didn't go down.
Whoa!
But my eyes rolled back in the back of my head. You guys would know that. My eyes rolled back. My dad was watching on TV. He could see it on TV, the whites of my eyes, and he thought I was out cold. I was. I think Fraser held me up. I think he noticed that he hurt me, but kept fighting. And so that was one of them. But I have to say, I love Chris Nyland. The guy wasn't a big guy, and he'd fight anybody, and he took care of his teammates. But Bob Porter, who I played with in junior, was one of the toughest, I think. And Semenko was another one. And then Brownie, Dave Brown was sick. But there was a lot of them out there. But I would say Semenko, Proby, and Brown would be three of my top picks.
Wow.
And one of my greatest fights was against Owen Nolan. We were both captains. I was wearing the C for the Canadians at the time, and he was wearing the C for the Sharks. And we had a great bout. We hit each other quite a few times. The speed punches. You know, us hockey guys, how we fight. We try back in the day. We just tried to throw as many punches as we could and just hope for the best.
Yeah, man, just grab on and tilt.
Yeah, hopefully I'd hit him more than he'd hit me. But I mean,
I've only ever seen one MMA fight that was like a hockey fight, and it was
exactly.
What was it, Don Fry and what's his name? They just tie plumb and go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love the martial arts. I watch the UFC and stuff like that, and I mean, it's incredible. The one thing I love about it is it teaches you how to be strong, in your mind too. Mentally, you teach you to be a lot tougher. And I mean, I had guys that I played with that took it, and they did. That's what they told me. And Chris Nyland actually taught me a lot about fighting, because when I first came, I just grabbed on wherever and just threw as many punches as I could, and I got hit as many times as I hit somebody. He's one guy that grabbed me. He's one guy that grabbed me and said, "You're going to get killed because you're not a big guy compared to some of the guys out there if you're going to do it this way." So he taught me how to, tie guys up and how to hold them, how to put my chin and turn my, just do the right things, right? And it actually worked for me. I ended up not getting hurt as many times, and it was good. It was a lot of fun.
Little technique all go a long ways, right?
It's incredible.
We see that at the gym, man. Guys that have
incredible.
Nothing. Yeah.
And I would hit the bag once in a while with him, and I was hurting like my baby knuckles, and I wasn't punching properly. I was punching with the wrong way, and then he taught me how to punch, and then it was the first two finger knuckles you were supposed to be hitting with. And it's just a lot of things you learn by, man. But it's all about your mind and your mental toughness and doing the right thing and spending time with people and learning from people. That's why I like the UFC and martial arts a lot. I really enjoy it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep going back to the anxiety thing, but you said you developed anxiety as a young child. So you went through your whole career dealing with it then.
Yeah.
How were some of the ways that you would approach a big game while you were dealing with this anxiety? Like, if you carried this with you forever, how did you cope with it? And was there any kind of strategies maybe that other people could apply to their stressful situation, or just maybe it's going to the grocery store, or maybe it is competing at a high level?
I guess.
Yeah. You know what? When I was younger, looking back now, because I know what I know now and what I've been through, and, talking to people and spending time with doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists and stuff like that, I wouldn't have guessed what it was at the time. I thought I was just having a panic attack and stuff like that. And I look back, and then it sort of hit me even more when I found out that I had ulcerative colitis, and people were telling me I wasn't going to reach the goal that I wanted to reach, and that was playing NHL. I mean, it was a big, lofty goal, and I was, had no idea at that time that I could reach it, but it was something I wanted to, and I believe it's important to have, dreams and goals. And that started creating a little bit of anxiety for me at that time. And then it just grew after my dad passed away. My dad was a big, huge supporter of mine. It was somebody that I could go talk to and not have him judge me and just help me through certain adversities in life and things like that and tough times. And he was always there for me, and it was somebody I could talk to. And so it just kind of slowly got worse and worse. But I mean, like I said, I hit it, and that's how I dealt with it. I self-medicated by drinking and different medications that I found through different doctors who were willing to give me those medications. But the biggest step I ever made was to leave the game of hockey, which was the toughest thing for me to do because it was something I loved, enjoyed doing more than anything, to get the proper help. And I tell everybody that's the first step is to realize you need the help. And the second step is to go get that help and then support. You mentioned something, you guys have both mentioned that support is an important thing. And I was lucky to have a good support system there with my mom, my sisters, and my family. And the team doctor here in Toronto was amazing too at the time. So, I mean, I had all those things, but I mean, I just try to keep a regular program. I try to get up in the morning at the same time, go to bed around the same time, depending on where I am, boys.
Depending on what's on Netflix.
Yeah, or well, nowadays Netflix, but depending if I'm out having some fun, it might not be in quite early. You boys know how to use what that means, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And I think working out, man, I'm telling you right now, and that's why I like going back to the martial arts thing. It teaches you to work with your mind too, and working out is very important. If I don't work out for a couple of days, I don't feel good. So working out is a key, and staying, in the gym as much as I possibly can, or just going for a walk, or like walking to the grocery store, like you said, and doing the groceries and coming back. And I think those are the things I did. But I mean, once I got through it, I just try to hold on to those things that I try to do, and that's just try to stay positive. And you can't control anything that is out of your control. Just try to do the best you can, be the best person you can possibly be, and find the things that you enjoy in life and do them. And just enjoy life, because life's too short to worry about things you can't control.
Wow.
Hell yeah. Well
there you
said,
have it, folks. That's awesome. Well, I know you don't have a lot of time, and I want to thank you so much for joining us here, Shayne. It's an absolute honor for John. You're a legend of hockey and for Canada. Keep doing the great things and keep being an inspiration. And we have lots of love and respect for you from the East Coast. And a good shout out to Hermano Clothing, is that right?
Yeah, Hermano Clothing, brother.
Hermano
Thank you very much.
There you go.
Yeah, he's a local guy. He became a buddy of mine. He's just a great guy, and he's got a great story. So it's really cool what you guys are doing. And I mean, thanks for having me, and thanks for giving me all the support over the years of my career, and now my active career. I'm just trying to do good things to try to help people, and I know you guys are doing the same thing, and I really respect you guys for that. And it's been a great pleasure, and I'll come back and join you guys anytime, because
man,
seem like
awesome.
quality guys and quality people, and I love the East Coast. I have a huge love for the East Coast. I love coming out there. The people are just genuine and real, and they'll do anything they can to help you, and that's why I love coming there. And every time I have an event, I say yes because of the people, and then it's also a lot of fun. Let's be honest. Have a good time out there.
That's right. Shout out to Kenny Reed.
I'll tell some stories next time.
Wicked.
That's right. Awesome, man. Well, again, we're honored. We thank you so much for joining us, and lots of love to you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Love you guys, boys, and good luck, and keep doing great things. Cheers.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
man.
the kind words.
Take care.
There you have it, folks. NHL legend Shayne Corson. Very cool, John.
Very cool, man. See, these are the guys like him and Rudy played back when we were kids, man. We were watching these guys growing up. It's the coolest.
Well, it's funny, and I know a guy who, anyway, I won't get into it, but who's kind of connected to a lot of these guys, and it's funny. He's like, you got to talk to the alumni, the guys who played, because they're the ones with the story. There's the ones, they're not going to get in trouble for talking, right? Like nowadays, you can't say anything wrong. It's going to ruin your career, right?
That's true.
So it's interesting to have him on. I thought that was great. I thought it was really neat.
Oh, that was awesome, man. And I got to say, talking to Jeff was really cool as well.
And Mark, all of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we went through the gambit of it tonight, and yeah, man, I think that was a great conversation. And all three of those guys could easily have been an hour.
Yeah.
Each, you know what I mean? So it's fantastic to just keep meeting and discussing these topics with these guys.
I don't know how I passed this by Chelsea. This didn't go over well. Let me
Oh,
say.
geez. I can
But-
just imagine.
I was thinking we should do a marathon, a 24-hour show.
Yeah.
Straight.
Oh,
6
yeah.
hours, straight with all different guests and raise money for something like
That would
Fight
be
League
cool.
Atlantic or something. I don't know.
That would be cool. I'm going to have to get a better system here. I've hit the low battery on my phone twice.
Yeah, that's all right. But yeah, I don't know. I think
I love that idea, man.
Yeah.
And I do. And, if it was something we could, we'll discuss it, man.
Oh,
Let's figure something out. That's
down
a
the
wicked
line, but I
idea.
think it could. Yeah, it's back in the day they had the 30-hour famine. You could something like that, right? But
man. Hey, listen, I can sit here and talk to interesting people all day.
Yeah,
I'll hook up a catheter. I'll get like a box of I'll get a box of crackers or something.
Just crackers.
I'll put a diaper on.
Shout out to Storks Bickle. They're going to send us some vaporizers so that we'll just hit the vaporizer during the broadcast. Stork and Bickle. But yeah, otherwise that was a great night. Shout out to our sponsors again: Privateer Harley Davidson, Conway Customs, Halifax E-Scooter, and Maritime Madness Hot Sauce.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we'll see.
And
All right,
supplements, Motive Fitness, Body Martial Arts, Fight League Atlantic.
Ryan and Gene.
Yeah. Support local people. Let's get her going.
That's right. All right, man. Wonderful evening. Back tomorrow night with another episode. Tomorrow night we have on Luke Little and a guest to be named tomorrow. A surprise guest. We actually have our first Tiger King signee next week, May 25th. Tiger King making the Fight League Atlantic podcast debut next Wednesday night.
Okay.
Monday night, sorry. The Tiger King.
Interested to hear what you've been brewing, Mr. Clark.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome.
Cool.
So she's
Very
gonna.
cool.
Let me just find out her name here exactly. I should know her name. Kalani Safri. She had her arm removed by the tiger.
I know exactly who you mean.
So she's going to come and join us on Monday and talk all about the Tiger King.
Interesting.
So, should be cool. So make sure you're around.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see what I can do.
All right. Well, just be careful out in the forest. There could be some tigers sneaking up on you there, John.
Yeah, I'm more worried about falling off a roof these days. So
yeah, that's right.
It's
How's
all
that
good.
going? Good?
It's going, man. I think I'm past the most tedious part now. We'll see what the next couple of days bring.
There you go. All right. Well, folks, stay tuned. These hoodies and shirts and all fight gear will all be in the next couple of weeks. It'll be done and out there for all. There's like 3 of you who have asked. So as soon as we get them ready.
Yeah, I've got some messages too, man. I'm sorry, guys.
There's no rush
working on it all. It's coming.
It's a hoodie. And we'll also have maybe summer. I was thinking maybe some nice like beach wear,
Yeah, tank top would be a good idea. I mean, we have the t-shirts, we have the joggers figured out, we have the hoodies, the shorts. The shorts are just being held up now, I guess, with
fight gloves,
shipping. So
anybody out there looking for some gloves at home, they can't train, they need some gloves, by all means, hit us up. We can drop them off to you or whatever. But anyway, man,
we'll figure it out.
Episode 56. That's a wrap. Thanks to our sponsors. If you can be anything in this world, John,
be kind, sir.
All right, man. Lots of love, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, brother. Later, everybody.